Hey viewers, real quick, click the top link in the video description to join my mailing list. I'll have merch and a book coming out soon, so join the mailing list and I can send you updates on those things. Thank you.
Ever. There's not any break off species from the clam turning into something else.
Wait, hold up. So real quick, I want to introduce Planet Peterson. So, my dude, this is actually awesome. I didn't know that you were going to join my panel. Thank you. You know what? I'll let you handle this, Planet Peterson. You can go ahead and shine. Tell him
Sure.
why he's wrong. Or,
So, like,
go ahead.
the idea that in the fossil record we never see anything change or anything, that's completely false unless what you meant was something that's just so obvious that it has no bearing on the truth of evolution. So when you find a fossil, you cannot see evolution in a fossil of an organism. That's just so obviously the case. But what's also so incredibly obviously the case is that the farther back we go in time and we look at fossils, the fossil record of the past is composed almost entirely of organisms that don't exist anymore. But organisms are produced through reproduction. Ergo, we have a couple of different possibilities. One, life, completely unrelated groups of life, have just been randomly, spontaneously created over hundreds of millions of years for absolutely no reason. Or two, the organisms of today are the descendants of different organisms from the past. Ergo, evolution happens.
Okay, well, the problem is you've described how things came about, but you haven't described where things come from.
That's not the theory of evolution.
I understand that, but things come from somewhere. They don't just arise all at once. And that's what the fossil record shows, is that you have all these
No, it
organisms.
absolutely doesn't. Does
It
the
does.
archaeological record show that Rome actually was built in a day? Not a day, in an instant?
No, because we have carbon dating for that.
Does the archaeological okay, so what I was trying to say is, do we see a very slow gradual building of Rome from literally the very first brick that was laid down all the way to the creation of the Colosseum? No, because physical evidence will always have some sense of incompleteness in it. And so will the fossil record. But the fossil record really clearly doesn't show that. I don't know what you mean. Again, I don't know what you mean by life all of a sudden just pops up. We can see very clearly that all of our fossils that are billions of years old are microbial, right? There's a very clear gradual emergence of more complex organisms in the fossil record that is 100% consistent with the idea of evolution that was proposed more than 200 years ago.
What you still haven't discounted the carbon dating.
Why would I
We don't use
I
carbon
don't.
dating.
What did that have to do with anything, though?
Right.
Because you
But
can
what
carbon
about
date all of those fossils and everything,
No, you
and
can't.
all the fossils or whatever, um, they roughly show up at roughly the same time in history.
No, they don't. What are you talking
No.
about?
No, they don't at
They
all.
do.
Are you,
They-
you're
they
telling
don't.
you're telling me that the Smilodons in the La Brea tar pit are the same age as stromatolites?
I'm not saying that carbon dating is.
No, it isn't. Because first of all, you can only carbon date things
can't
up to
carbon
about
date, yeah.
60,000 years old.
Right.
Because at that point, the number of half-lives that have occurred, the amount of radioactive material that's left over is basically indistinguishable from background radiation. But second of all, well, there is no second of all. That's actually it.
That's it.
So
Yeah,
then, how do you know
definitely.
that those bacterial species are billions of years old? Then
Because
We can
they've
test it
been
using other different types of
radiometrically
radiometric
dated.
dating.
Not with. I think a lot of people think that carbon dating just is the only way you can date rocks, and that's not true. Carbon
yes.
dating is how you can date certain organic things, not rocks, but certain organic materials by comparing ratios of carbon. But for other things, we use rubidium strontium dating, or uranium lead dating, or potassium argon dating. There are others off the top of my head. That's all I can think of.
Yeah. Also, I gotta preface this too. So when we date things, we don't just use radiometric. There's also like fusion track, the fission track dating, dendrochronology, There's also what you call it, paleomagnetic dating, and there's even like electron resonance dating as well. So we don't just use like radiometric dating, but Planet Peterson just said was, yeah, we do use primarily these when we are looking at certain strata and trying to estimate the age of a fossil, etc.
Well, I mean, the other problem with the fossil thing, the reason why it's incomplete is because most of the stuff that was fossilized was marine life and dinosaur bones, and that's pretty much almost
That's
the
not
extent
it.
of it.
That's simply not true whatsoever.
Yeah,
But
that's not true at all. But it actually makes perfect sense that the fossil record would be composed overwhelmingly of marine organisms because, thank you, because a marine ecosystem where you have tons of sediment is highly favorable to the conditions for fossilization. But life originated in the oceans also. So it would make sense that quite a lot, and the most common fossils are like organisms with shells. That also statistically just makes it more likely that you will fossilize because they don't tend to. There are very few organisms that will decompose those things. And so, anyways, without going on a big long rant. But also, I forgot about that. You said this earlier. All the fossils show up at the same time. That's like not even remotely true.
It is.
no, it's not. Not even close, dude.
I mean, it's not. Where are you getting that information from?
Young
Like, who taught you that?
Earth creationist. I literally just walked out of the room to get some squirt out of a 2-liter, but as soon as all the fossils appear at the same time, yes, yo, Starry, it's amazing. Hey, Planet P, real quick, would you mind giving me a follow back? I believe in theistic evolution. I'm a Catholic, but I'd love to have you up on my live stream because I'm going to be doing lives with the same topic. Evolution is a theory and a fact. I'd love to have you up to as a guest or just to chime in with your expertise. I've seen some of your lives before, but never had a chance to talk to you. So
Only
I'd
if you
appreciate
come on my podcast.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah. My podcast is the Chase the Giant podcast, so I'd love to do that.
Gotta love a good quid pro quo.
I'll
try to
DM
do
you
the
so
same.
you could see
yeah, that's the thing though. Like
my work.
like John. So you seem to be very deeply confused about this stuff. Like, no, like this is why we have so many different dating methods. Like the way you would test a mammoth fossil is not the same thing that you would test for like a T-Rex or the same thing you would test for a trilobite. We use so many different types of dating methods, and there's so many ways of testing it. Like there's like you can't say they all exist at the same time. But they don't even exist in the same strata. This is why we have relative dating and absolute dating, right? Where we find certain fossils in a certain strata continuously across the entire world. This is how we managed to construct plate tectonics. This is how we know about how the continents were fused together, split apart many different times, from Rodinia, Euramerica, to Gondwana, to Pangaea. So you can't say that all the fossils exist at the same time. It makes no sense. It contradicts everything.
I should have prefaced that better. I don't mean like all fossils as in the whole of all the whole entire fossil record, like bacteria and phytoplankton and all that stuff. I'm talking mostly like vertebrate animals.
That's not true either. No, the earliest vertebrates appeared during like the early, either early or mid Cambrian, with like Pikaia began, like with like an early toothless fish. Like no, and seeing where its fossils are located, we don't find the fossils of T-Rexes. We don't find the fossils of like bony fish like Dunkleosteus. We don't find any of these guys at all. We don't find synapses. We don't find terror birds. We don't find any of these things in the same layer at all. So you're wrong again.
It's true that during the Cambrian explosion, most of the phyla, the major phyla we have, appear. But the Cambrian explosion, even creationists like Stephen Meyer point out that it's a period of at least 5 million years, as many as 15 million years. So that's really not at the same time. And if we can like get into like niche, well, it's not really niche partitioning, but like radial evolution or whatever. When niches begin to be exposed, you get a huge amount of proliferation and diversification. But anyways.
Adaptive radiation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you take a look at the whole of time of Earth in general or whatever, humans show up in the last 5 minutes of the entirety of Earth's existence.
Yeah, it's not really important for the argument. But also, this thing about the Cambrian explosion is that argument is 150 years old and it's outdated because we now know about the Ediacaran, which precedes the Cambrian period, and we see a lot of gradual evolutions of organisms from then, like Dickinsonia. Don't laugh, that's actually its name, and many others.
Hey, John, may I ask?
Yeah, like including Spergina as well. Dickinsonia, Spergina.
John,
What's
may
that?
I ask a quick question around? So clearly, you believe in that fossils exist. So I'm trying to understand. Do you believe in any part of evolution, or so you agree that there are fossils? So where's kind of the line for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, and only a fool would sit there and say fossils don't exist. I mean, they're everywhere, and I mean, someone's not walking around in the government agency like running, like throwing around fossils and stuff, and be like, "Oh, look, there's a fossil over there."
Okay. So do you believe in evolution?
No, I absolutely don't. I believe that everything that ever was appeared relatively at the same time. It's more of a creationist view. And mainly, if you take a look at the Bible in general or whatever, it gives a time frame of when creation happened and what happened during creation, and it said
During
that's.
which version of creation?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Which version of creation?
Genesis 2 or 3.
Which chapter?
There's two stories.
Early, basically, early sarcophagean fish, right? So what? So they were able to connect this brainstem to the heart in a single straight line, right? However, though, when early fishopods, right, the transition between fish and tetrapods began to develop necks, the problem is that nerve got caught up, I think, like a certain arch that it was around the heart. And so what happened is that instead of doing this direct line from the brainstem to, the heart, it instead went around. So that's why you see the recurrent laryngeal nerve of giraffes like 5 meters long, where it should only be like, maybe half that distance. So, like Planet Peterson, that a good description of it. I'm trying to remember it. It's really difficult.
So evolution is Darwin always called it descent with modification. So evolution can't start over brand new from scratch. Sometimes genes get duplicated, and even Hox genes get duplicated. So body parts, you can have more than one, and then eventually it can be modified into something else. But this laryngeal nerve, the only thing it could possibly do to accommodate for the change in the body structure was to lengthen by tiny fractions of a millimeter every many generations. And there's no problem with doing that at each step. The problem is after 100 million years or 200 million years or whatever, you end up with a nerve that has this extremely stupid pathway through the body.
Yeah. So evolution is not perfect. So yeah. So any kind of idea you may have of evolution just simply getting bigger and faster and better, that's simply not true. Evolution makes tons.
Well, see, the reason I picked the giraffe was because it's an exaggerated animal, and it would be easy to find in a fossil record in order to show the transition over time of this adaptation or this change occurring.
Which we do have we have a pretty healthy record of the fossil record concerning giraffes. Like wasn't there like a recent discovery of like a giraffe ancestor, that at least giraffe relative, that had like a big dome head? So yeah, we have a pretty good healthy record of giraffe evolution. Not perfect, but it's pretty good. We can go through it if you want to. Let me pull it.
It's actually a pretty easy Google search. I just did it, of the evolutionary tree of the giraffe. It's there. It's pretty well documented.
Yeah, but giraffes eat from trees, so how can you use that tree as a source? That circular reason.
The reason a giraffe has a long neck is almost certainly competition among males for mates. Because they actually don't eat leaves that are very high up on a tree. But giraffes, the way they fight is they go, bam! So their neck is actually just a lever.
I mean, I've heard of that, but the problem is that I've heard of that hypothesis for like a giraffe having long necks, but to me it doesn't really make too much sense, because the reason why is because both males and females have long necks. So it's like, well, this isn't like a sexual dimorphism kind of thing where one trait is found in like one sex. It's like, well, then why do the females have long necks then?
True. So I probably shouldn't have said the only reason. But funny enough, I have 2 giraffes right here.
Oh, let me pull you up your screen.
It's like too many coincidences, John Bobby. Like, hey, now I would say
This is what
is
giraffes do.
evidence that you need to accept theistic evolution. John, if you believe in God, God did evolution. There you go. Now you don't have to argue against reality anymore.
Well, it has nothing to do with arguing against reality. I mean, I sit there and I see a picture of giraffes or whatever like that are much smaller than the modern day giraffes, but they're still giraffes nonetheless. They're not something else.
No, yeah, they definitely were something else.
That's what I'm getting at. And why do we not have fossils showing the transition?
We do. They have much shorter necks, and they have, like, their anatomy is completely different.
We do, though.
You're talking about giraffes still being giraffes. I'm talking about what came before the giraffe.
No.
Because giraffes didn't just randomly appear, because you guys don't have the creationist aspect, so you don't believe that giraffes just magically showed up one day.
Samotherium major. It's literally not a
John.
giraffe, but it's a transitional fossil of a giraffe.
Yes. And also to explain a bit further, so the earliest giraffes, guess what they are? They're called artiodactyls, right? Which are part of a larger group that contains things such as the pronghorn. So even the pronghorn looks very similar to the giraffe. So it may have been the earliest type of giraffe before there was even giraffes, right? Was probably very anatomically similar to a pronghorn. Now, before that, then you basically have to talk about like more clays, like freaking Boreoeutheria or something like that. So we do have tons of fossils of the evolution of giraffes. Have you looked into any of this at all?
Yeah, that's why I use the giraffe specifically.
I highly doubt you have, because you just said there's no good. I'm pretty sure. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said there's no fossil record of giraffe evolution. Did you say that, or did you not say that?
I said there's no fossil record showing that you have one species turning into the giraffe.
You are demonstrably wrong.
Okay, I would like to see evidence, because I can't provide you with no evidence when there's no evidence to present.
Well, the problem is that you claim that you've looked into this, but I'm pretty sure I can pull up several different Google Scholar
One link.
papers on this
One link
right
is all
now.
I would need.
Okay, I have
One link? Okay,
here.
give me some.
I don't know the
Google.
original context, so I'm sure I could get it. CBS.
I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative, and I've actually looked for the giraffe.
We're the ones that are usually asking
Don't
for
worry,
sources.
we know
so I'm
you
glad
have.
You're
Don't worry,
asking
it's
for
okay.
sources. But there's just something here. CBS News says, for years there's been scant fossil evidence showing how the giraffe evolved to have such an admirably long neck. But now the remains of a 7 million-year-old creature with a shorter neck provides proof that the giraffe's iconic feature evolved in stages, lengthening over time. Found in a study. And again, I can find that.
But that's still talking about a giraffe that's just an older giraffe with a shorter neck. I agree that the giraffe's neck has gotten longer over time. That's
about a giraffe, John. It's a 7 million.
He's moving the goalposts.
It's a
Wow.
completely different
Yeah, I
species.
know.
Talking about the giraffe.
Okay, guys, go. I just want to clock out and say thank you so much, everybody. This was an amazing live.
Hey, Will,
Planet,
good to meet you.
good to meet you, Special K. I'd love to have you up on my live. Planet Peterson, thank you for the follow back. I really appreciate it, considering you're only such a few number of people. I do appreciate that. I'll come on your podcast. You guys will see me on there soon. I would love to have you talk to a lot of the Christian fundamentalists on my live. Guys, everybody in the chat saying you're surprised I agree. You can agree with this and be a theist, guys. The father of the Big Bang Theory was a Catholic priest, so this doesn't contradict our faith. Yeah, so that's why I'm up here explaining that I believe God is the author of evolution. So just theistic evolution. You don't have to be afraid of it here. Instead of banging your head on the wall against reality, you could just accept what reality says and recognize that the universe being billions of years old is actually more beautiful than it being thousands of years old. I mean, doesn't that make you feel more special? And God did all that right? Like, I personally think that's more wild, that it's like, yeah, it was 4 billion years. That's way cooler than 6,000 years. Like, every hair on your head is numbered. Yeah. And it took 4 billion years to get to the first person. Think about that. All right, y'all. Peace out. God bless. Thank you all.
Thank you, QB, man. You're always welcome to come out.
Fascinating. It says researchers are calling the remains of this ancient beast true transitional fossils, not only closing an evolutionary gap in the rise of Earth's tallest animals, but also providing concrete evidence of how one creature evolved into another. We actually have an animal whose neck is intermediate in length. It's a real missing link. This was New York Institute of Technology, College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Do they have more than one?
I don't.
I mean, it only takes one.
From
just said
here, John,
one.
you can look this up. All right. I mean, already a quick Google search, I was able to find this.
You only asked for one. It only takes one.
source.
You did. You said
No. I'm talking about did they like pull up multiple of these fossils, or is there just one fossil? I haven't
takes
said
one.
anything that's like contrary. I'm just asking questions. Like, there's no reason to get angry or upset over it.
No, we provided you with stuff, so if you want to know more.
Oh, I'm just talking about a source. You're talking about one specific.
Which is what you asked for.
You asked for a single source, dude. Just
I
one
have-
source. You didn't ask for how many like.
Don't move
like,
the goalpost,
sample-
please.
I'm not moving the goalpost. I like I said
Yes,
from the
you are,
beginning.
dude.
I
Like, dude, wait, hold on, real quick, John. Your goalpost is all the way down the field, dude. I can't catch it. Can you just bring it back here? For
Do
us?
you remember what I said from the beginning? I believe that adaptation of animals over time. That's not in
Well, we're
dispute.
talking-
And one form of giraffe turning into what it is today by having a longer neck over a period of time.
No, what
That's
I'm
not
telling you-
that's adaptation. That's not evolution.
That is by
Jeez,
definition
not this
evolution.
argument.
By definition, over.
Adaptation
John,
is not a
giraffe turning
thing
into a
that
giraffe.
happens.
Tom Peterson.
What'd you say?
Adaptation is not a thing that happens.
Sure, it is.
It's not. The
The animal
only-
that's most suited to its environment is going to be the one that survives and propagates.
John, what is the where okay, what causes organisms to have the adaptations that they have?
Genes.
What is the only you are correct. What is the only way for those adaptations to change?
Mutation.
For the genes to change. What is
Yeah, mutation.
What is genes in populations of organisms changing over time? What is that?
Adaptation.
It's called
Evolution.
It's called evolution.
It's literally evolution, dude.
Adaptation.
That's not
is
evolution.
a thing
That's literally
that
the
happens.
textbook
That's the
definition
definition
of
of
what it
evolution.
means. There's a textbook definition, dude. Okay, hold on. I got like literally 3 freaking AP biology books in front of me right now.
Well, let me ask. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can, and you guys are not being serious at all about it.
No, we are. Adaptation is an end product of evolution taking place. Adaptation is not a thing that happens.
It is something that happens. Because
It's
I'll give you an
not.
example. I'll give you an example that'll work in modern day and real time.
At the end of this, what's going to happen is the source for this adaptation you're going to tell us is that organism evolving. But go ahead.
No, they wouldn't be evolving. Okay, so just say every guy on the planet or whatever that's under 6'3". All right, girls all of a sudden no longer have sex with anybody that's shorter than 6'3" or whatever. Are you saying that all of a sudden? Are you saying all of a sudden that men are going to be, or the human species is automatically going to go taller as a result, right? Because now they're getting constantly influenced with genes that are 6'3". So if women keep having sex with only guys that are 6'3" or taller, eventually the human species or whatever is going to be like the norm is going to be 6'3". That's not evolution.
Yes,
That's
it
just
is.
selective breeding equal into an adaptation.
Wait,
Allele
okay,
frequencies
hold on, real quick.
changing over time is the definition of evolution.
Yeah, I feel like you don't understand what an allele is. Like,
And
okay,
also,
so do you,
nothing that you said there was adaptation. You didn't even use the word.
No. In fact, you use the word genes, which is evolution.
Yes, because adaptation and genes go hand in hand.
Right. As do evolution.
Adaptation isn't
Also-
a thing that happens, though.
exactly, and not
That's like saying
mention the fact-
traffic drives cars
Mhm.
instead of the other way
Yeah.
around, John. It makes zero sense. Traffic doesn't drive cars. Cars cause.
So you don't think the environment can influence change?
Of course it can. It's called
Well, that
natural
would be an
selection.
example of adaptation.
No, it's not.
which is a
Adaptation
It's
is an
literally
end
evolution.
is an end result of selection on certain genes causing changes over time. Adaptations can't happen unless evolution happens. Like, even you know that. An organism can't adapt if it doesn't change in some way. There are really small tweaks in gene expression that happen. Like, for example, some animals, their fur changes color with the seasons or whatever. But nobody that believes in evolution thinks that that's what evolution is.
What about the squids that can actively camouflage themselves?
That's a trait that they have, yeah.
But that's adaptation. They're
And
changing they're changing to their
Yes,
surroundings.
and the only reason they can do that is because of the particular genes that they have. And the only way to acquire different genes that serve different functions is for evolution to occur.
What I mean by adaptation, I'm not talking about something like, for me, example, I'm never going to be 9 foot tall or whatever. It's just not going to happen or whatever. But adaptation for the species is what I'm talking about. Where, say, if person that has a specific attribute or whatever, and it allows them to breed with more people or whatever, that attribute, that's adaptation, going off into the future of the species propagating itself.
So you've just substituted what you at first did was say that evolution doesn't happen, it's adaptation. Now what you're saying is you're describing evolution and just using the word adaptation instead.
Well, see, evolution isn't about necessarily and specifically only about one organism changing incrementally over time, and they just stay that one organism. Evolution is about transition from one organism into a completely different organism
Not
over a
necessarily.
huge
No.
swath of time.
That does happen, but that's not what evolution is. The peppered moths, their population evolved, even though they were still peppered moths at the end.
I would argue that they've changed, yes, but have not evolved.
But
Well, change,
okay.
real frequencies changing is evolution. That's just
Yeah. Also, real quick, yeah, John, do you know what an allele is? Do you know what that like? So so do you remember in middle school where the teacher told you to draw that funny little square with like?
Yeah, the Punnett square. I'm familiar with genetics.
You
Punnett square.
do understand that is literally how evolution happens, right? How certain like, over time, like certain offspring will have this kind of.
Well,
trait,
that tells
and over time
short
they
hair,
have-
long hair, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, all that sort of stuff. That's just basically showing you the probability of outcome of
Because the problem
dominant traits versus recessive traits.
See, because the problem is that you're thinking of evolution as the development of new species, and that's not what it means.
That's specifically what it. That's specifically what the definition is.
Can I say
That's
something?
not what the definition is at all. That's what macroevolution is. Yeah, microevolution is simply small scale evolution, basically changes within a population, right? That's what it means. So no,
You really shouldn't.
evolution can lead to speciation, but it doesn't always do.
You shouldn't really use micro and macro evolution. That's like a creationist talking point.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Am I good?
I can hear
Hello?
you, Paleo.
Okay, cool.
you hear me,
All right,
guys?
cool. He's just silent.
Yep, I hear everyone.
Okay. Now, so the
Yeah,
whole
John,
thing
you're
of the
right.
idea of
No,
macro and
evolution
micro
doesn't mean
evolution.
new
That's like a
species. It can lead to a new species. It doesn't mean new species.
Paleo, could you hear that other guy talking?
I could not. I mean, I
Oh,
heard a
'cause we all could.
small- Oh crap! What was he saying?
He
I
was,
really didn't hear
he was
you.
just saying you shouldn't say micro and macro evolution because it's a creationist talking
Yeah,
point.
like so. Technically speaking, so it was biologists who coined the term micro and macro. Now, of course, I know it's just evolution, but I was trying to make it a lot more simpler for him to understand that. Like, if we understand evolution, then okay. Technically speaking, you could break it down to these two little categories: macro, which is evolution at or above the species level, and then microevolution is effectively like evolution within a population. It explains why there are so many different breeds of dogs, cattle, cats, right? Even though they're all still technically the same species, while like macroevolution is like why we have lions and tigers and leopards. They have the same genus name, but they're all different species.
Yes. But I think the variation that we're getting at is you guys are talking about more like genetic variation. I'm talking more genetic drift.
No, you're not.
You
No,
weren't
you're not.
talking about that. Nor would that
Remotely.
matter for our argument.
No. Those terms
Because
sound good, but they're not really relevant.
Well, the point I was trying to get at or whatever earlier was like, how do you have everything come from bacteria that we have today?
No.
Well, changing the
Can't let you
subject
just
big time.
change the topic. No.
Yeah.
No, it's just rehashing the subject that we talked about earlier.
John, what do you really want to talk about? Like, what is your contention with evolution? Because when we explained to you that evolution is not simply just speciation, you move the goalpost. When we explained to you how genetics can influence evolution, you didn't understand any of it. When we explained to you the evolution of the giraffe, you didn't understand any of it. Like, what is the what is your argument?
Can I address something real quick though?
Okay, he's gone again. How long is it? It's like, but John, what is your argument? I don't know how we can help you because you
Or
keep...
what evidence would you be looking for, John? What's
Exactly.
missing to you? Because the fossil record is not missing; it's there. So what's missing?
The question I have right now is okay, you have the beginning of time or whatever as far as the Earth is concerned. All right, then you have the emergence of bacteria and stuff. Is there any argument there, or are we still in agreement so far?
High level. Go ahead.
Because I'm trying to figure out where our opinions or where our thought processes are diverging.
We've only said two things so far. I would keep going.
Okay. So at what point in time, like, did we have this explosion of life?
Multicellularity really helped.
Yeah. Which we can actually demonstrate, like...
We can have thousands of single-celled organisms, or millions, billions of them, but at what point do they become complex, like, and lots of them all at the same time?
Well, we had to
Why
have,
do you say lots all at the same
endosymbiosis and multicellularity first.
Yeah.
And
In evolution, we're not claiming that the explosion that you are referencing is not something that evolution claims.
Yeah, but also we have extraordinarily strong evidence of each of those things.
Yes.
Because, I mean, there's no argument that there's fossils of bacteria, cyanobacteria, and all these other things. But, like...
And that
No argument.
and chloroplasts are endosymbiotic bacterial captures from billions of years ago.
Yeah, the time frame isn't an issue for me. I'm not going to argue that. But the like, all of a sudden we seem to have vertebrates, invertebrates, and land creatures.
All of a sudden, John,
not all
that
of a
I
sudden,
think
it's-
is getting you
No,
caught up because
Hundreds of
it's-
millions of years.
No one is claiming
Yeah.
it's all of a sudden.
When I say all of the sudden, I mean, like, I'm not saying that millions of years is a short time. I'm just saying that, like, the variation, the amount of variation of species and stuff that we seem to have, and the amount of them that we have, doesn't seem like enough time has passed in order to populate to that point.
Well, it did pass.
That makes sense.
Apparently, it was enough time because that's what we can see from the fossil record.
We have such a way bigger problem than that, John. If you believe, you think the Earth is only a few thousand years old. So if you're right, your model about how life and the way organisms adapt
Did I
over
just
time
say?
is
I
impossible.
believe I just said that I have no problem with the 3 billion years. So I don't know where the few thousand
I
years
said earlier,
came from.
you think everything was created at the same time and recently.
Yeah.
No, I did not. I said it came about all at the same
you
time.
said that
No,
earlier.
John, this is all recorded. You did say that.
You said that
Yeah.
earlier.
No, I didn't. You can go back and look. I did not say it was 1,000 years. I never said anything.
All the
You-
fossils were found in the exact same layer. This is all recorded.
I didn't say they were found at the exact same layer. I said they happened
you said
about
they
in
appeared at the
time,
same-
all roughly at about the same time.
Yes.
And
you
I was
said it
talking
recent.
about the ocean, the shells and clams and all that stuff.
Okay, so do you think Earth is billions of years old or not?
I think it's highly probable that it could be billions of years old. Like I said, it doesn't have any
What do you
any
think
specific
it is?
time frame. I have no idea. I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to speak intelligently about the age of the Earth or the universe.
Do you think that it's possible that the Earth is only a few thousand years old? Because if you ask me, it's literally not possible.
Would you say you'd say that it's absolutely impossible?
Absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm not gonna knock it out of the park and say that it's impossible. I'm gonna say it doesn't say. There's nowhere does it say in the Bible or any other Bible how old the Earth is. It doesn't say. And since it doesn't say it, I can't declaratively make a statement that says it is 10,000 years old or 5,000 years old or 2 billion years old or 5 billion years old.
Okay. Do you think that the story of Noah's Ark literally did happen?
Yes, I do believe it did happen.
So do you think that so far cataloged, we have 1.5 million species, but a lot of conservative estimates say there are 10 million species. We can just go with 1.5 million. Do you think the 1.5 million species we have today are the direct descendants of the only a few thousand species that were on the Ark?
When you're talking about are you only talking about land animals?
Like literally whatever you want to believe. Yeah, we can go with land animals.
I think it's possible that he could have had land animals on there specifically and only.
So earlier, a little bit ago, you said hundreds of millions of years is not enough time for all this diversification, but apparently 4,000 years is enough time for a few thousand land species to turn into the 800,000 species of insects alone.
I didn't say I did believe that. I said I'm not going to discount it because it doesn't say specifically. But as far as the Noah's Ark thing or whatever, it says he's got 2 of each animal. It didn't say how many animals were actually on the Ark.
Yeah, but it couldn't have been all 1.5 million species.
Yeah, like also, by the way, on my page, I'm actually posting how zoology disproves Noah's flood. There is no possible way that flood is true. There is no possible way.
No, that's
It contradicts everything we know about paleontology, zoology, dendrochronology, it contradicts everything we know about physics, everything. There's no possible way that flood could have happened at all. There's no way a global flood could happen. There's no way.
There is an explanation that I heard recently about how it could have possibly just been a localized flood and not like a global flood.
Correct.
Sure.
That may be true. A localized flood, not a global flood, which we know never happened.
But I've also heard a couple other things, like the sea levels were much lower than they are currently than they are today. Because there's actually 4 times more water in the Earth's crust than there is on top of the Earth.
4,000 years ago, dude. Not 4,000 years ago.
I never said 4,000 years ago. I don't know why you guys keep repeating that.
Then your argument is irrelevant.
Yeah.
How is my argument irrelevant?
Because it has nothing to do with the flood narrative, which occurred around that long ago.
Who says it?
You said it.
Who says that the flood happened 4,000 years ago?
Literally, if you read the Bible and you you add the genealogy, yeah, it takes place roughly around 4,500 years ago. Yeah.
If you actually read the Bible, it does not list the date on when the flood actually happened.
Yes,
the 4,000 years ago is a prediction about when it happened.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to bring the Bible into this. You guys keep pulling it back up.
I mean, I'm okay with bringing the
Why
Bible.
believe in Noah's flood if not for the Bible?
What are you talking about?
Let's change the subject to evolution.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not the one that brought theology into this. You guys keep asking me questions about it.
Right. So John, I'm curious. So you believe that adaptation happens. I'm wondering why there really isn't that big of a leap from what you're talking about, from what you're calling adaptation. There really isn't that big of a leap to evolution. And again, I believe there is evolution is what we're talking about, but trying to use the terminology that you're talking about. If you believe in adaptation, what's stopping you from believing in the evolution?
I'm not saying that species can't have small changes over time. I'm not saying that.
So you're saying that you don't believe that speciation occurs.
I'm saying that one species didn't populate the entire Earth as we know it.
Okay, John, the problem with all of this is the implications for your argument is that life is not many billions of years old. Because the idea that life would just be static over these billions of years, even though small changes every generation happen, as you admit, it means that there's absolutely no way life would remain static, right? And so, again, we're left with either just thinking the Earth is only a few thousand years old, which is absurd, thinking that the Earth is billions of years old, but life has been static for, like, ever since it was created, basically, with only small exceptions, which is absurd, and there's no evidence to support that idea, or that random groups of living things that aren't related to each other have gone extinct, and then brand new ones have just popped up out of absolutely nowhere, miraculously created, even though the entirety of genetics completely disproves that. Those are the only alternatives I can think of other than evolution happening. So I don't see what your problem with evolution is unless you admit to all these things we've asked, like, do you think blank? And then you go, no, that's not even important for my argument. It actually completely is. Because otherwise you're just not even taking a stance on anything. You're just like, I don't like the idea of evolution.
No, I've already told you where I stand. I'm just saying you keep pulling out an argument that you don't like, and you keep using it as a straw man against me, and that's what I'm saying. You can't really sit there and keep throwing Noah's Ark up in there in 10,000 years when I'm not even using that as a defense.
So then then you tell me, John, how is it that you admit that organisms do adapt and microevolve just over the course of a couple generations? How is it that they remain static across billions of years?
I'm saying they don't turn into completely different animals.
Yeah, I'm saying,
like, you're not going to have a fish.
John, how is it that they don't radically change after billions of years with small changes happening every single generation? How is that impossible?
I think that's kind of where I was going, John, in that the small changes that you're talking about, if they keep happening and keep happening and keep happening, these small changes over a very, very long period of time are ultimately going to change these and diversify, especially when you're talking about genetic isolation, groups of animals or organisms moving to different areas. So, and then they change and adapt, and then the other ones change and adapt, and they continue these small changes over time. Ultimately, it's not that surprising to find that you're going to have something different. It doesn't happen like a mother organism doesn't give birth to another completely different organism that looks different, right? It's all over time. And eventually that's what speciation is. So I guess it's just, I don't see it being that big of a leap when you put what you're talking about with adaptation with billions of years. When you couple those together, I just don't see it as a big leap.
I can see it as an animal changing over time or whatever, but the animal's not going to go from scales to fur to...
But again, that's
Well,
not
we
what-
have good evidence to suggest
How is it that
happened.
over billions of years,
Right.
those changes are impossible? What's your argument?
Right.
Exactly.
Well, it's not going to turn into something completely different. I mean, even if
What's-
even in
Keep
the
repeating yourself.
Un-
Why, dude?
It's tiny
Jesus,
changes, John. They keep happening.
it's not a why. A giraffe's not going to go into the ocean, start swimming around, and then magically turn into a whale.
That's not what we're
Pachycetus
saying.
did.
saying that.
These are small changes.
Yeah, there's
What do you
small
mean?
changes
John,
that
John, John,
ultimately
John,
end
John,
up in one
John,
big
John,
change
John,
eventually at some
Tell them
point.
about
No, there's
languages
never
change.
one
John.
big change. There's never one big change, John. They're all small changes. But then when you look from very early on to a billion years later, when you compare those two, yes, there's a big change. but there's never an instant in time where a big change happens.
Yeah, and that's the big change that I'm talking about. It's
No, but it doesn't.
over a billion years. Eventually, those incremental little changes and stuff. You're stating that a big change is occurring over a billion years, where
Which
that
we can
animal is
demonstrate.
now something else
We can
entirely.
see-
A
If
billion
you want,
small
we can go over to
changes
wait,
results
John,
in a
John. If you want,
dramatic
Yes.
change.
yeah.
Yes.
Hey, John, if you want to, we can go over the evolution of mammals. This is like the things that make up a mammal are amazing, and we can literally see that from the beginning of the Permian around 298 million years ago, all the way until you get to the Jurassic when the first true mammals appeared. We can literally see that, dude. Like from
Yeah,
the
and then you
structure
have
of
the
our-
extinction of the dinosaurs all at once because of a meteor impact or something.
No, the dinosaurs went extinct. We have birds. No. What I'm simply saying is, we look at the earliest.
No, I said the dinosaurs.
Yeah, so
Birds
when
are
you look at the
dinosaurs.
earliest ancestors
Birds are
of
dinosaurs.
mammals, what you can see is they had many different bones within their lower jaw, just like what you would see in reptiles. But over time, the gentry begin to expand, pushing out those bones to effectively then become the middle ear. However, though, we do see a slight little change where we see a type of mammal called a Morganodon that had double joints. So it had a structure that was similar to that of a reptile's, but on its way becoming a mammal. So this is a good transitional fossil between animals that were effectively similar to reptiles and animals that lead directly to mammals. We can directly see that. So you're just not even looking at the data. You're just ignoring it. I highly doubt you even know what I'm talking about. I can bring you studies suggesting this has happened,
Yikes.
right?
John.
Yeah, I think I know the dinosaur that you're speaking about. It's got
This
feathers
is not
and
a dinosaur. This is a
and
mammalia
lizard.
form. This is a mammalia form. This is not a dinosaur, nor is it a mammal.
But there's a number of species that sort of do what you're talking about.
Not really. No,
That are-
the specific characters I'm talking about is the squamosal and the dentry, right? And there's also the articulate and the quadrate. No. So this was a structure structure are found in reptiles, and the structure found in mammals. This animal has both. It's losing the structures of a reptile and is becoming a mammal. We can see that. Like come on.
John, what language do you speak?
English and Arabic.
3,000 years ago, did anybody speak English?
3,000 years ago. Pre-Roman. I don't know, but it's probably unlikely.
The answer is no. Nobody spoke English 3,000 years ago. When was it that one day people woke up and started speaking English?
I'm not sure. But it would be. Well, obviously, they didn't wake up. It would probably change. Something had to turn into English at some point, if it wasn't already spoken.
Yep. So is it the case that one day one generation spoke this one language, and then the very next generation spoke English? Is that how it happened?
No, it's probably something more along the lines of how English turned into American, turned into slang, turned into Bonics, turned into whatever.
Yes. Okay. That's where we went with that. So, in other words, really small incremental changes, very small changes to the language where it never becomes a different language each generation over time produces completely different generations. We don't have to ask for what was the point where Proto-Germanic turned into English, because that's not how it works. Everybody knows that's not how it works. So this thing with evolution where you keep saying, I just can't understand, when did the giraffe go into the water? That's not what happened. It's microscopic changes every generation. But when you do, what happens when a billion microscopic changes happen? Well, you have one thing, you have something millions of years later that has accumulated billions of changes different from the ancestral population. What if you change billions of things about something? It's not going to be the same species anymore. If you don't get this at this point, I don't think we can even talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Okay. So
Are you sure
what
about that?
about any of that is impossible?
It's not impossible for something to undergo changes over time. That's not impossible. I'm not refuting that.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
So that's why I'm saying it really is not a big intuitive leap to understand how it happens over billions of years that you're going to end up with something.
What I'm saying is
Doesn't look that much different from the generation before that, but looks very different from thousands of generations before.
what I'm saying is you're not going to see humans turn into mer people at some point in time in the future, no matter how
I
far
agree.
into the future you go.
Keep
I
raising
agree.
these
Some
kind
things
of
won't
absurd
happen, but other things do
right?
happen.
You keep raising these absurd examples, but no
He
one
keeps on pivoting. Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on, real quick. Hey, John, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. Like, are you a basketball player? Because those pivots you've been doing throughout this entire live stream, it's like
You got broken
insane.
ankles.
John's got
Yeah, bro.
John's got 2 left feet, and they're both pivot feet.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only one sitting there making parallels over here. Like, I'm just joining in the conversation.
What was that?
That was me. Well, by me, I mean it was this thing.
Oh, okay. But yeah, but seriously, John, like, you know what? I've never seen anyone just duck and dodge and pivot so many times throughout a live stream. It's been a wild one.
But I can see what you guys are saying. Like, I'm. It's not like I'm oblivious or whatever. What it still comes back down to. Eventually, we had one thing, and you guys said that's not what you're saying at all. But I don't see how else it could have happened.
That one thing didn't just turn into humans. All right, that's kind of like what you said when you first came on. It's like, well, you know, we came from a single cell organism and all of a sudden there were humans. And no, that's not the claim. And that's what I think. That's what we're hoping you're seeing. Is that no one is claiming that, that these things happen in a single generation.
I'm not saying it happened in a single generation. I'm just saying it happened at some point in time. Is what you guys are stating.
But but hold on.
It actually doesn't
when
happen
you say
at
it
some
happened
point
at some
in
point
time.
in time. That no,
You guys are getting hung up at a
that's
fixed
also-
location. I'm just
Because
saying.
evolution is fairly predictable, right? We can see certain
right.
trends.
We're hung up on your
keep
words.
intimating that something happened, right? That all of a sudden something happened, and what we're trying to say is no, something didn't happen. It's some teeny little things kept happening all along a long period of time.
Yeah,
Makes it
slight
look like
modifications.
something
Because
did
that's what Darwin said when he wrote his book, Descent
teeny
with
weeny
Modification, meaning you are a modified version of your ancestor, right? You're not exactly like them, but you are still technically them because you are still within their evolutionary history. In the exact same way humans are animals, we are mammals, we are vertebrates, we are deuterostomes, how we are apes, we are all of them in one. We may not be like the other apes, like the other mammals or the other eukaryotes, but we are still eukaryotes. We are still mammals. We are still apes. So, like I don't get what you're not understanding about this because
I'm talking about our origins. 3 billion. You said 3.5 billion years ago, roughly. Our ancestors were basically phytoplankton and
not
what else?
phytoplankton. Oh God, no. Dear God, no. What? Phytoplankton? Aren't they like close related to like plants?
It's one of the original organisms on the planet or whatever.
No, that's the earliest life form.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The origin of humans. The origin of humans.
No, it's
What
not.
single-celled
Photosynthesis
organism
probably
is
a billion years.
supposedly our ancestor?
So Okay, so this topic is very tricky. Thank you.
Oh God.
Yes.
And that
correct.
came from where?
A single-celled organism.
Okay, and that
did
came
not
from where?
evolve
I'm
into a
talking about the
human.
complete
Humans
breakdown
evolved
of beginning of
probably
time.
from Homo heidelbergensis. Probably Homo erectus. You're talking about Luca, which that goes back very far. Humans didn't come directly from. Just like it's like you're asking me, when did the first, or not the first, when did people who spoke Latin
You
start
guys,
speaking English?
you keep
not
pivoting on
how
me
it
about this.
happened.
We're
Like,
not
where does the
pivoting. You've
origin
been the
of
one
human?
pivoting this whole time,
Eventually
so I
started
called you a
speaking
basketball player
other
earlier,
languages
dude.
that eventually morphed into
No,
other
John,
I-
I
languages that
understand what you're
eventually
talking
morphed
about.
into
I
other
understand what you're
languages
asking. I
that
mean,
eventually morphed
essentially,
into English.
abiogenesis happened, which is still, being discussed. And what you're saying is how did we get to where we are from abiogenesis? That's a logical
hell?
question, but there are
Bloody hell,
answers. And we did. I don't have that whole tree going back, but I have a feeling it wouldn't take me very long on a Google search to find that.